Recently, there has been kind of a theme with European-based home computers, mostly because of my simple fascination with them. I didn't grow up with them, and they're much more of an oddity to me today. They've got some great games to play on them, but for the most part, like I said, I didn't grow up with it, so I'm actually discovering some really interesting things to play on them. Enter the Commodore 64, which is noticeably the most popular of the European computers, being in the Guinness Book of World Records as the highest-selling single computer model of all time, with independent estimates placing the number sold between 10 and 17 million. While consoles have certainly sold more than that, it's worth noting that computers tend to be on a way faster upgrade cycle. A computer you buy today may not be the computer that's most up to date next week. Hi, my name is Brad, and today on Unbroken Software Studio, I'll show you how to get the Commodore 64 up and running in LaunchBox, and how to play some of its, let's say, quirky games. So, let's import some games. There are two different types of versions of games that I commonly found for the Commodore 64. We're talking about tapes and floppy disks or diskettes or, removable media that's not tapes. And I do have them separated. But I will show you how to add the NIB file extension diskette files to LaunchBox. So let's go to Tools, Import, ROM files. We'll go to Next, Add Files. We're going to navigate to where we have our Commodore 64 games that we want to import. We're going to click on a game. We're going to Control A, and we're going to hit Open. It's a really long list. Once the list is parsed, you're going to click Next. Platform for imported ROMs. We're going to click the drop-down box. And we're going to go down to the Commodore 64. Now, we will be renaming this later to PP, just, based on what this folder's name is. But we want to import them as the Commodore 64 first for scraping purposes. We're going to click Next again. Where it says choose an emulator, more than likely you don't have one. So we're going to click Add. And we're going to type in HOXS 64. I think that's called Hoxis 64. And then we're going to hit Browse, navigate to where we have our emulator, and double click on the EXE. I will also make sure to give you guys the link to this website, but it is essentially just www.hoxs64.net. And you want to download the version of Hoxis 64 for your machine. These top two are for more recent Windows computers. This one down here is for Windows 98 and 2000 systems. The other two should be for XP and up because they only require DirectX 9. To figure out if your computer is 32 or 64-bit, let's right-click on your Start menu and we'll go to System. This will open up a system panel about your PC, giving you basic information. The installed RAM will generally give you a good idea. So I've got 32 gigabytes. I have well over the 4 gigabyte limit of 32-bit Windows. Down here it says system type 64-bit. If you have 4 gigs, chances are you only have a 32-bit PC. You shouldn't, or where you bought your computer shouldn't have installed the 64-bit operating system. If you have more than 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12... you should have a 64-bit OS. If you have a 32-bit OS, that means your system is actually not using as much RAM as it should, so you should probably upgrade your Windows. So knowing that we have a 64-bit version operating system, we'll download the 64-bit version that I did here. So we're going to, like I said, navigate towards the Hoxis64.exe. And then in the associated platforms, I added 3 platforms. I added the Commodore 64, Commodore 64 tapes, and the Commodore 64 discs, but I've since wanted to rename this to Commodore 64 PP. So you just double click on an empty space, type in what you need, and then click the default emulator boxes. Back in the emulator details, there are 2 commands that we need to make sure are in the emulator details box. In the default command line parameters box, make sure you have -quickload space -autoload, both one words. These 2 items are very important to getting any of your games running. So make sure that at the very least you have autoload. Quick load is less of a big deal and actually can cause some compatibility issues. So if a game is not playing properly, removing the quick load command and then trying to boot up the game again may solve that problem. Just keep that in mind. And then we're going to click OK. Once it says Hoxis 64 in the drop-down menu, click Next. Use the files in their current location. We're going to make sure that the box for the LaunchBox Games database and Wikipedia is checked. We're going to click Next. Next. Unfortunately, at the time that I'm recording this tutorial, it looks like Emu Movies is down. But they're not normally ever down. But on this screen, you will log into your Emu Movies account. You will check the Select All button. There is a button there to prioritize the images and media of Emu Movies over the LaunchBox Games database, but I personally prefer the LaunchBox Games database over Emu Movies. Now, if you have a free account, I would not suggest to prioritize Emu Movies over LaunchBox Games database, because Emu Movies for free members has a download cap. So you can only download at a certain speed. Even if you can download at 7 megabytes a second like myself, the website will only give you a download at, I think, a max of like 400 or 500 kilobytes a second. You have a 1 or 2 gigabyte download limit per day from the website, and you can't get video. But I mean, that's really just pay. If you pay a little bit, donate, and you buy either a lifetime or an equivalent pack, you can get an increased bandwidth cap, or you can get an unlimited download amount per day. So normally there would be a list here with checkboxes, video at the bottom, but we're just going to go ahead and click Next. Next. This is the list of games here. If you don't want anything imported, just click on it and then press delete on your keyboard, and it'll remove it from this list and not import it right now. And then we'll click Finish. When your games successfully import, LaunchBox may freeze for a second or flash. And if you click on over to your new system category, you'll notice that all of the images start to fill in and populate. Now, unfortunately, because I can't search Emu Movies, as you can see, there's unfortunately not a lot of images available for my games. Again, it's probably just because I can't log into Emu Movies. There would be a lot more images like the tapes category. But at the end of the day, this is an old PC, so there may be a lot of gaps in your images just naturally. Even with Wikipedia, the LaunchBox Games database, and Emu Movies, a lot of games will still be missing metadata. The beauty of our LaunchBox Games database, however, though, is if you do have art, for example, 1943, 1 year after, for the Commodore 64, and you've got it inserted into LaunchBox, eventually you'll be able to upload that metadata and media to the LaunchBox Games database from within LaunchBox. Keep all of this in mind when going forward. LaunchBox is ever changing, and we will one day strive to have 100% images. So let's go ahead and change the Commodore 64 over to Commodore 64 PP. So we're going to click on a game. We're going to Control A to highlight them all. We're going to right click, press Edit. This is going to bring up the bulk edit wizard. We're going to go to Next, and where it says Field, we're going to select Platform. Where it says Value, we're going to type in Commodore 64 parenthesis PP in parenthesis. And then Next. Next. No, I don't need to make more changes. Now, what this will do is change the platform name over from the Commodore 64 to the Commodore 64 PP. It may take a couple of clicks or a little bit of time for it to transfer everything over, but there you go. But then now you're saying, wait, Brad, you just did that, and we saw you download images, but now images are gone. Well, if we navigate to where you have LaunchBox installed, let's go to Images. And here you'll see a list of console names. You'll see Commodore 64, Commodore 64 PP, and Commodore 64 tapes. We're going to copy the Commodore 64 PP name. We're going to go to the Commodore 64 name. We're going to rename it and paste in the PP that we got right there. And it's going to ask you, this folder destination already exists. We're going to click yes. And then we're going to check this box, do this for all current items, and replace all of the existing and matching folders. So it'll all get merged together. Even though I didn't download any video because Emu Movies was down, the same thing still goes for your videos folder. You'll have a Commodore 64 folder, you'll rename that to the Commodore 64 PP folder, and everything will be good. For example, I had the Commodore 64 folder for the tapes the other day. And I created the tapes section and I renamed all these folders, and I came in here, and as long as the names of the video and the images stay the same, it will automatically match itself up in LaunchBox. When you make that move to combine and potentially overwrite some files, if it says the operation can't be completed because X file is being used in LaunchBox, close down LaunchBox first and then make the transfer. It should go then. But now you're saying, wait, you have made the images, but they're not showing up. Well, if you go to Tools, refresh all images, or close down LaunchBox and reopen it, either option will go ahead and notify LaunchBox that the images folder has changed. It will automatically look in the right location, but you need to do this in order for LaunchBox to see the new location of images. And there we go. Our Commodore 64 PP section has the images that we downloaded for it. Unfortunately, you're going to have to do this process again. You're going to have to click on a game, Control-A to highlight them all, and change the system name back to the Commodore 64 if you want to update or download any new media or metadata from the LaunchBox Games database or Emu Movies. There is another feature in the works for it to eventually be released that will scrape a system as something else. So if you have a Commodore 64 PP section like I do, or you have a Super Famicom section, for example, you could scrape as and tell the Commodore 64 PP to scrape as a Commodore 64, or the Super Famicom to scrape as the Super Nintendo. Let's double click a game to make sure that it works. You're going to see a loading BIOS screen real quick. It's going to flash up, and it's only flashing away because we used the dash autoload. If you didn't use the dash autoload, it would be stuck at the ready screen, waiting for you to input a command. And because we used the dash quick load option, it's going to try and load your games faster. But do note that even though we have the dash quick load option on, it can take some time for these games to still load, because they're based on tapes, so do keep that in mind. You may also get weird artifacting like this too. You may get flashes of weird color bands. Just note that it's all probably normal. And there we go. Alien World has loaded. So if you go to Settings, Keyboard, get familiar with the keys here. You can change them also if you would like to use your keyboard. Or you can go to Settings, Joystick. From the device name drop-down, select your controller. Button 0 is the cross button on a PS4 controller. Button 1 is a circle button. Button 2 is the triangle button, and button 3 should be the square button on the controller. So if you have a PS4 controller hooked up like I do, there you go. Should be the relative equivalent to the Xbox One or 360 controllers as well. Make sure to check this box for enable, and press these if you want to reverse the controls. And then there you go. You're ready to play the game. I do want to point out that it is a little bit of an older technology. You may come across some issues. Getting a new RIP or a new version of your game may solve your problem. Luck maybe play a big factor into it. Sometimes they aren't just going to work the way that we unfortunately want them. Just know that this is an imperfect system, but there are a couple of games here that are really interesting to check out. That's going to be it for this tutorial. If you guys liked this tutorial and it helped you make your LaunchBox library look that much more beautiful, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos in the future. Leave your comments in the comment section below. If you have any questions about this tutorial, if I kind of didn't explain anything clearly enough, or I glossed over something, or you need a little bit more of an explanation on something, please feel free to ask. Jason and I are more than happy to answer any questions that you have. If you like the sound of my voice, a link to my channel will be in the description below. I do lots of gaming content on my channel, and I am live streaming most days over on twitch.tv. A link to that will also be on my channel. Remember, Freaks and Geeks, to play more games, and I will see you next time. Have a good day.